If you're not God, shut the fuck up. Simple.
All right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. So I've got several interesting stories for you guys today, so let's get straight into it. So this first story here is about Larry Wheels, and surprisingly, it is not the typical story that we report on with Larry of hitting some new crazy PR, some crazy lift on Instagram. It's a less positive story. He actually tore his bicep while lifting these Atlas stones here. So it was actually surprising to me to see him have this injury not doing a powerlifting lift. And you can see it on that last Atlas stone there is where he actually tears the bicep. But for me, I thought it was going to be one of these crazy deadlifts or something of that nature where he ended up tearing a bicep. But it was actually an unconventional strongman lift, training for strongman. I thought strongman was kind of going to be the least of his worries because it seemed like he was more focused on these crazy PRs as far as powerlifting was concerned. Specifically, the deadlift would leave him maximally susceptible to a bicep tear. And with strongman being kind of, for lack of a better term, a side project for Larry, I didn't think strongman would be that big of a deal as far as getting injured. I thought it would be one of these crazy PR attempts that he's always going for on Instagram. Specifically, again, with powerlifting. So he says in the caption here, torn bicep, wait for it. Again, if you watch the video, it's that final Atlas stone where he tears the bicep. And he says, the tendon still seems to be attached. No, he will not be competing this weekend. It's been years since he's gotten injured. About time it happened. Only started strongman in January this year. Injury is just part of the learning curve, which I think is very true. And, you know, the way he put it, it's been years since I've gotten hurt, about time it happened, is probably the way a lot of people that were watching his videos felt. He's just kind of on this constant upward trajectory of constantly improving, constantly getting better, constantly hitting new PRs, constantly lifting more and more. And there seemed to be nothing that could slow him down, which was kind of the inhuman aspect of the Larry Wheels story, was that really he was never getting injured. He was never slowing down. He kept hitting PRs. So it is kind of, in a sense, about time that something happened. Not that I'm happy to see him get injured. I'm definitely not, and I certainly hope that he recovers quickly, and I definitely wish him the best. But it does seem like it was only a matter of time before something like this happened. But I definitely don't think this is the end of Larry Wheels. I think this is a minor setback, and he's going to continue to do what he's been doing. And that upward trajectory is only going to take a minor dip with this bicep tear. So I do wish Larry the best. Now, moving straight into the next story here, I feel like this is kind of related and relevant because it's about a bicep again. So everybody's favorite person, the Russian Synthol kid, Kirill Tereshin, or Rookie Bazooki Official, posted this photo on his Instagram. Now, I just want to preface this with saying that I think this is not a recent photo. I think this is fake and probably another attempt to gain publicity. Maybe a year or two ago, he did a similar thing where he said that he got his arms drained, and that was kind of a stunt to just get some publicity. So he posted this picture where his arm is clearly either photoshopped to be downsized, to look like it had been drained, or it was simply just an old photo that he posted recently to just maximize the effect of the photo. And the caption essentially says, think what you will about this photo. And he says, you, yes, you. So we have this guy famous for having these massive blown up oil arms that has kind of perpetrated this same stunt before where he talks about getting his arms drained, posting this ominous, very vague caption on this photo. To me, and of course, a lot of people are sending me this because we've talked at length about this kid. A lot of people are sending this to me to ask what I thought. And my thoughts are, it's either fake, A, B, it's a publicity stunt, or C, it's simply just an old photo that he's trying to pass off as a recent photo to get people talking. Now, my honest opinion is he's never going to get his arms drained. I think however this story ends with the Synthol kid is not going to be a happy ending. I think whatever scenario where he ends up stopping doing what he's doing is not going to be just, I got my arms drained. It's going to be a serious health event, unfortunately, I think is going to be the case. But I try to be positive on this channel. I still wish this kid the best. I hope he gets help or maybe realizes the error of his ways before it's too late. But I do wish him the best regardless. Now, moving into the next story here, we have a story that I actually found particularly interesting. And that is this video here of Brad Castleberry training Muay Thai. So the reason why I found this interesting is that at the most recent call out between Kenny KO and Brad Castleberry, Kenny essentially challenges Brad to a celebrity boxing match for charity. And Brad basically accepts that call out, but he says in that call out he'd be more open to doing a more mixed martial arts style of charity fight versus boxing, which I think is fair, because Kenny's a pretty tall guy. Brad's like my height, so not that tall of a guy. So I think from a strictly boxing standpoint, I believe Kenny has some kind of boxing experience in his past. Kenny would have a severe advantage in terms of reach over Brad Castleberry. Now, I think if you added in Muay Thai or other mixed martial arts where Brad could have the opportunity to be on the ground with Kenny, I think you would find a much more favorable scenario for Brad. So that's why I found this video to be interesting, because typically Brad has a very consistent history of accepting these various call-outs, whether it be to lift weights in person or to train with somebody or to participate in a powerlifting meet or some kind of event. He has a history of saying yes and then not showing up. So the fact that he said yes to Kenny recently, then this video was recently posted of him actually training for some sort of mixed martial arts fight, I thought was interesting. I thought it was, really the first time we've seen two steps in the direction of actually answering a call out. I mean, typically he just says yes, then you never hear from him again, or you never hear about that call out again. But to me, this appears to be two steps in the direction of that charity fight. So it might be something we actually end up seeing, which I think would be cool. Now, as far as Brad's actual performance in this little sparring session here, I'm not even going to pretend like I'm some kind of mixed martial arts expert, but to me, the only real commentary I could give is that some of the stuff that he's doing appeared to be kind of slow. His movement just appeared kind of slow to me. Now, I'm sure there's plenty of you guys that studied this stuff or mixed martial arts experts in the comment section below that'll have some good feedback for this video. But for me, I'm not an expert, so I just think some of the stuff he did look kind of slow. All right, so moving into the next story here, let's get into some updates here. So we've got an update from several different bodybuilders I think a lot of you guys would be interested in seeing here as far as physique updates and progress pictures. So number one, Arnold Schwarzenegger's son, Joseph Bania, posted a more recent side chest pose. And like I said before, man, people always joke whenever Joseph does this, they're like, there's going to be a Nick Strength and Power video coming soon about this post. I just think it's fascinating, man. Honestly, just seeing Arnold Schwarzenegger's genetics passed down to his son and his son actually pursuing what Arnold pursued, I think it's just a fascinating study in genetics. And I think really seeing how far Joseph can push it is a very, very interesting thing. And I think in this update, Joseph does look to have made some progress since the last time he posted a side chest pose that we talked about. I think it was probably like a year ago now that he posted that, maybe a little less. But honestly, man, I'm just fascinated by the whole thing, and I love seeing stuff like this, and I think it's just really interesting. And I'm really excited to see him actually compete and see how far he actually ends up going in the classic physique division, assuming he competes in the NPC. I don't know why he wouldn't, and probably attempts to get a pro card and see how far he can go in the NPC and IFBB if that's the route he decides to go. I'm assuming it is, but I just think the whole thing is fascinating. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below about how Joseph Bania is looking in this side chest pose comparatively to his father, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now, the next progress picture that I have for you guys here is one that we have not seen from this bodybuilder in a very, very long time, because we haven't seen this bodybuilder compete or prep for a show in a very, very long time. Now, this bodybuilder is Evan Centopani, probably one of the biggest fan favorite bodybuilders of all time. Now, Evan's biggest setback in his career and the biggest reason he hasn't competed lately was a severe injury, I believe, to both of his legs. If I remember correctly, he slipped on some ice years back and ended up tearing, I forget what it was, either his hamstrings or his quads in both legs. And after that injury, you just did not see Evan Centopani compete. And like I said, he's one of the biggest fan favorite bodybuilders. He competed in a lot of Arnold Classics. He competed in the Olympia. And he posted this update, which is the first physique update I've seen from Evan in a very, very long time, with, of course, the caption, chunky. But to be honest, I think Evan looks really good here. And to be honest, of all the bodybuilders that we talk about as far as making comebacks and competing again, Evan is one of the guys that I want to see make a comeback really more than anybody else, because he's not really a guy that left on top. In many cases, guys that make comebacks, you have guys that were 1 and 2 at the Olympia. You've got guys that won big shows like the Arnold Classic. They get later on in their career, retire, and they want to come back. Evan is a guy that we never really got to see win one of those massive titles or place super high at the Olympia. We never got to see him win an Arnold Classic. We never got to see him, have a top 3 spot at the Olympia. And Evan is still a young guy relative to bodybuilding. So he's one of those guys I would like to see come back and make another run at a title like the Arnold Classic, or make another run at the top 6 at the Olympia, and really try to cement, some higher placings and maybe some big wins in his career, because I still think he has that potential, and I still think he has that ability, because he is still a very young guy, and I think he's got a tremendous physique. So Evan, I wish you the best. I don't know if you're planning on making a comeback or not, but if you even have the slightest inkling of doing it, I think a lot of people would love to see that happen. Now, another update we have from Chris Bumstead at 12 weeks out. Now, this is something I wish a lot more bodybuilders would do, and I think a lot of the younger guys like Chris Bumstead and Regan Grimes are starting to realize that this is something they can capitalize on by posting updates like this on social media, on their YouTube channels or their Instagrams, and they can grow their following doing so. They can give fans a good insight into their prep by doing so as well, and they can give people something to talk about by doing so. So Chris Bumstead posted basically a full posing video at 12 weeks out showing what his physique is looking like, and to be honest, I think he looks fantastic. Now, again, this is something I wish a lot more bodybuilders would do, because I think a lot of guys still have this old school mentality of keeping everything under wraps and waiting to surprise people until the day of the show. But when you have a top contender like Chris Bumstead that has been second 2 years in a row, you want to build some anticipation. You want to build some hype. You want to say, okay, I've been runner-up the past 2 years. This is how good I'm looking at 12 weeks out. Now talk about it. I think that kind of stuff is what makes bodybuilding interesting, and that kind of stuff is what makes it fun to be a fan of bodybuilding. That's what makes channels like mine popular channels, and that's all I'm really trying to do on this channel, is make bodybuilding more interesting. Because if we don't discuss bodybuilding and there's no drama, there's no speculation, if there's nothing to talk about, I mean, what really makes bodybuilding interesting if there's nothing to talk about and you're just waiting till the day of the show, watching the show, and then not discussing the results, not talking about how the guys are looking prior to the show? It's really not that interesting if there's nothing to talk about. So in that same spirit of talking about shows and trying to make it interesting, let's go ahead and talk about this weekend's British Grand Prix. So there's a lot to discuss about this weekend's British Grand Prix. Number one, you had the major comeback of Zack, who hasn't competed since, I believe, 2015. So 4 years off of competing, makes this major comeback to the British Grand Prix. And as you guys know, it's happening this weekend. So actually, at the time I'm recording this video, the prejudging for the British Grand Prix is happening right now as I'm recording this video. So there's not a whole lot of photos, there's not a whole lot of videos out yet, and we don't have the results of this show. But I do have some photos and some videos of how some of these guys are looking right now at the prejudging. That's happening literally as I speak. I'm watching it on Instagram right now. Now, based on what I'm seeing so far, I think it's fairly safe to say that it appears Nathan Diaz is going to win the show relatively easily, just based on some of the photos I've seen so far from prejudging. It doesn't really appear like he has any serious threats to him winning the show, which is really about what I expected, and I think it's pretty safe to say we're going to see Nathan Diaz at the Olympia, because winning this show will, in fact, qualify him to do that. Now, as far as Zack comeback goes, I've only seen very brief photos of how Zack looked on stage, and it doesn't look like he looked bad. Now, based on what I've seen of who the top 3 is, it doesn't appear that Zack is in that top 3 call-out. So I wouldn't call this comeback a failure at all. And as we do get more photos and videos of Zack and Nathan and of this competition in general, I'll probably do a separate video just of the results of this show, and just talking about how each of these guys looked. Now, I do want to say this. I did see a video that a lot of people were tagging me in or sending to me. This video that was posted by the promoters of the event, of the press conference for this event. It's a video of Zack talking at the press conference, and in that video he says, "If you're not God, shut the F up." And the caption on this video posted by the promoters was essentially saying, can you guess who Zack is talking about here? Now, leading into this show, Zack was apparently very unhappy with the video I made about his career, where I was talking about how much hype he had and he was in all the magazines and how big he was and freaky he was, and eventually just quit competing due to injury. And again, I wasn't really negative to Zack in that video. I was just going through the course of his career. He had a lot of hype. A lot of people were talking about him. He was this big, massive bodybuilder that was going to be the next big thing, and eventually just quit competing. That's what happened with his career. I mean, those were the facts. I didn't know he was planning a major comeback. Like 2 days after I posted that video, he announced it. So it was just kind of ironic timing, or really bad timing, for someone to make a comeback after someone posted a video talking about how their career essentially ended. So he apparently had a lot of things to say about me. He's calling me names, whatever. So a lot of people were assuming that at the press conference, he was talking about me here. So I made another video talking about the fact he was coming back. That video got almost 300,000 views. And that video was entirely positive, saying I was happy about Zack coming back. I wish him the best. I hope he does well. I don't have anything personally against the guy. And we still don't have the results of this show. I do hope that Zack does well here. So I just wanted to kind of go back to what I said earlier and kind of go back to what he said about if you're not God, shut the F up. I don't claim to be an expert. I'm just a fan of bodybuilding, talking about bodybuilding. And like every 6 months, it feels like I've got to kind of restate this. I don't claim to be a bodybuilding expert. I'm just giving, from a fan's perspective, my opinion on what's going on. And like I said, I posted a video about his comeback that got almost 300,000 views. And I think that's good for bodybuilding. Using my platform to do what I do, I think overall is good for bodybuilding. It's good for shows like this. 300,000 people saw that Zack is coming back to this show. That's good for the promoters of this show. That's good for this show. That's good for Zack. That's good for bodybuilding in general, I think. And that's all I'm trying to do with this channel. I'm not trying to be the next bodybuilding expert. Again, don't claim to be, never have claimed to be. I think using my platform to give you guys bodybuilding results, give you guys contest coverage that you guys want is great for the fans, because the fans have access they've never had before. The days of the magazines are gone. And now you have this new medium in YouTube where you can get up to the date contest coverage. You can hear someone else's opinion, whether you agree or disagree with it. You can argue about it in the comment section, whatever. But simply the point that I'm trying to make here is I'm not out to get anybody. I'm not out to be negative against anybody. I'm just trying to make bodybuilding fun, interesting, generate a conversation. That's all I'm trying to do. And finally, now that we are less than 12 weeks away from the Mr. Olympia, I want to encourage everybody to actually go and experience the 2019 Mr. Olympia. You can go to MrOlympia.com and buy your Olympia tickets now. Now is the best time to get them as we get closer and closer to September. I think tickets are going to sell out very, very quickly, and the level of tickets that you're going to be able to get is going to get narrower and narrower. At this point, at like 3 months away, you're going to have a much better selection of tickets. So there will be a link in the description below of where you can go buy tickets to the Olympia. Of course, you can come see me and meet me at the Olympia. I will be there in Vegas in September, so I'm looking forward to that. As always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure you subscribe to this channel if you have not already. I'll be posting more updates from the British Grand Prix as we get more updates. And make sure you give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. It really does help out a lot. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Nick Strength and Power, signing out.